Welcome to Grounded Wellness, your go-to podcast for simplified and trusted information on how to live a more non-toxic and holistic life. We're your hosts. I'm Bethany McDaniel, founder of Primally Pure, biohacking enthusiast and mom of 3.
And I'm Courtney O'Connor, holistic esthetician with over 15 years experience in the healing power of touch and holistic skincare rituals.
Living in a world full of toxic products can be stressful, especially when you're trying to keep your family healthy. We're talking with Dr. Yvonne Burkart, a toxicologist with 22 years of experience and a mom of 2. Dr. Burkart will give simple tips on how to lower your toxic exposures and help your body detox naturally. We'll also cover topics like Botox and forever chemicals. She believes even small changes can have a big impact, and I couldn't agree more. Let's dig in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grounded Wellness. I'm here at the farm with Dr. Yvonne Burkart. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's amazing to be out here on the farm.
Yeah, of course. Have you tried your drink yet that I made for you?
No, what is it? I'm excited to try it. I've been staring at it. What is it?
It's a liver smoothie. Have you ever had raw liver?
I've tried tiny bits of it, but never in a smoothie form.
Okay, so
this will be exciting.
You shouldn't be able to taste it if I did my job correctly. It also has berries, mint leaves, some raw milk. So yeah, it should just taste really creamy.
Sounds really nutrient dense.
I want to hear what you think.
I don't detect liver at all. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow, is this your own recipe?
A lot to mask it, yeah. Well, I'd love to start out by giving our listeners a little bit of background into your story and how you got into the world of toxicology.
I actually stumbled on toxicology when I was an undergrad, and I joined the lab as a dishwasher. And I started observing the professor. She was running all kinds of experiments, and I just got really interested in what she was doing. And I had the chance to join as a research student, so I jumped at the chance, and it's been just an amazing journey ever since.
Wow, as a dishwasher, that's wild. And you have your own health journey, your personal journey of healing. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. This probably started about 12 years ago when I started having increased stress due to my work life. I had just joined a flavor company working as a toxicologist, so that was my first real experience as a toxicologist in the chemical industry.
And what is that, just real quickly, what does that look like in that world? Like now I know as a toxicologist, you are talking about, you're inspiring people to live cleaner lives and you're exposing the toxins in different areas. But what about in that type of a setting? Like what does a toxicologist do when you're working in the flavor industry?
That's a really good question. There's actually toxicologists in pretty much every industry you can imagine. So the main ones that you might think of would be in the pharmaceutical industry. There's actually toxicologists who are running safety studies to make sure that the drugs are supposed to be safe. We know that doesn't always happen according to plan.
Yeah.
But the role of a toxicologist is really to determine what are the risks and what are the safe doses and levels that humans can consume.
Okay.
And ideally it would be long term. And for most products, it's actually, you should be looking at long-term data, right? But unfortunately, there isn't a lot of it. And so it's kind of like a toss-up and a human experiment at this point.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Okay, sorry to interrupt. So you were working as a toxicologist in the flavor industry.
Yeah, so in the flavor industry, it was my job to make sure that flavor chemicals were safe before they were added to food.
Okay.
Before they were sold to other food manufacturers to put into their products. I also worked with the fragrance division of the company as well. So flavor and fragrance chemicals actually overlap. They're pretty much the same.
Interesting.
Yeah, so if you think about it, the chemicals that give rise to a strawberry flavor also give rise to the strawberry scent.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, so when I was working in the flavor company, I was really stressed out. It was high pressure, high intensity environment. And I just started to notice that my health was deteriorating. Before that, it was a totally conventional lifestyle. I grew up eating all of the stuff that you see in the grocery stores, using all the products.
Just like living most of us.
Yeah, just living a totally conventional lifestyle until I was faced with fertility issues. And I just knew that I had to figure out what was the root cause of this. I knew that something else was going on. Doctors told me that IVF was my only option, and I wasn't willing to accept that.
Yeah, That's amazing, and that is not a unique story. The Scientific American published an article discussing how in the last 50 years, infertility has gone up 1% each year. Can you touch on the role that toxins are playing in this epidemic of infertility?
I believe they're at the root. They're definitely at the root of it. I mean, when I was in undergrad studying chemicals in the lab, we were looking at how environmental chemicals impact infertility and cancer. So it's not a surprise at all. I'm 100% convinced that the chemicals that we're being exposed through food, air, water, consumer products, those are absolutely at the root of why we're experiencing so much disease and infertility especially. And the rise in cancer is just astronomical.
And how were you able to overcome that? What sorts of changes did you make?
I first started with working with a functional doctor. So I had gone to several conventional allopathic doctors and they all told me the same thing. IVF is your only option. Don't do anything else. You don't have to change anything else.
Wow.
And then I said, this doesn't seem right. Something is not sitting right with me. I did my own research, found functional medicine. I found a practitioner in my area who started running tests and they found that there were imbalances. I had leaky gut, extreme leaky gut. Actually, it was really, really bad. I had a lot of acne, dark circles. I couldn't sleep. I really couldn't function in life.
Wow.
And the first thing they had me do was change my diet.
Yeah, we were talking about this a little bit offline. You transitioned to an autoimmune paleo diet for, I think you said 6 months.
It was in total about 6 months.
Yeah, and that's a long time. That's a big overhaul for someone who came from eating a standard American diet. Was that hard for you? And what changes did you notice after doing that?
It was definitely challenging at first, but I just said, you know what, I'm going all in on this. I know I need to do this to give my body the best chance it has to regulate and heal.
Yeah.
I just knew I had to do something and I didn't want to go the route of taking medications and, just being reliant on those things to just barely survive. I want to thrive. So I really started cleaning up my lifestyle. Food was first. I did the autoimmune paleo protocol for about 6 months and I worked closely with the functional doctor. And they were helping me to monitor my symptoms and inflammatory markers. And we started seeing things go down, numbers were improving. And then, things just went uphill from there.
Wow. And what other changes did you make? What other areas of life did you, change or make swaps?
Oh, it was as soon as I started feeling better with my gut, I said, there's still something that I know is not 100% healthy for me in my environment. Because at the time, I was still using a lot of cosmetics, perfume. I was in that environment. I worked in a company that helps to make those types of products. And so one of the things that I swapped out next were all my beauty and personal care products. Immediately, I just said, I've got to scale back on this. I switched out all of my shampoo, my makeup, especially things that are sitting on the skin that I was using day in and day out. I love makeup, I love products, so I needed to make sure that they were as low tox and clean as possible.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that's how the journey works for a lot of people. I know it was for me too. When my family started this farm, I started eating differently, eating whole foods, avoiding ultra-processed foods, noticed a huge difference with that, not only in how I felt, but in the health of my skin. And then that prompted me to look into, same as you, beauty and personal care products, switch those out next. And then it was like cleaning products. And then from there, you're finding all the little things, because there's so many other things aside from those like major categories. And still I'm finding toilet paper was a more recent one for me that I switched out. And so there's always more and more and more to do. But at what point were you able to then conceive naturally after making all of these changes?
I'd say it was about 9 months.
Wow.
After the initial, venture into functional medicine and just really taking care of my body and finding the root cause. It was pretty fast, and I was amazed and still so thankful to this day that it happened.
Yeah, that's incredible. And are you still working in the toxicology industry, in the flavor industry at this point?
No, I left as soon as my daughter was almost 1. It just was an ethical misalignment. It wasn't where I wanted to use my knowledge and expertise. I knew I could make a bigger impact by informing the public about what I had been learning about for 10, 15 years up until that point.
So you mentioned you had an ethical misalignment in your career. What were some of the things that you were noticing that made you kind of start to question the line of work that you were in?
It was really the fact that it was a prioritization of profit over everything else.
Okay, so as a toxicologist, were you finding things that you spoke out about that were not, were you finding things that were not safe for consumers, that were being ignored? Was there anything like that going on?
Not necessarily that made it onto the market, but there was definitely concerns that I had voiced that maybe weren't given enough priority as they could have been.
Yeah.
Thankfully, those didn't make it to market because they didn't work out anyway, but I can't speak on what's happening now.
Right. It's kind of sounds like it might be a little bit of a free-for-all. You know, I know when we think about fragrance and how that's protected by the FDA as a trade secret, it's a blanket term and can include any number of different chemicals combined. Is the same thing true for like natural flavors and that label when it comes to food?
Yeah, it's a total mixed bag. You have no idea. It's a black box. You have no idea what's in there. Even some of the people who are buying flavors and putting them in their foods don't know.
Yeah.
Only the flavor company knows.
Yeah, because they outsource that completely, right?
Yeah.
What is the difference between natural flavors and artificial flavors?
Natural flavors must have been at least identified in nature somewhere.
Okay.
But it doesn't necessarily have to come from the source that it says it comes from. So for example, vanillin doesn't have to come from vanilla at all. In fact, a lot of vanillin at the time that I was working there was produced from cloves. So it still came from a natural source. It just wasn't from the actual named source.
Yeah.
And artificial flavors are those that are not found in nature at all. They're completely synthetic and man-made.
Okay. So what if they make a synthetic version of something that is in nature? Would that be classified as a natural or an artificial flavor?
Natural.
Wow. Even though it's made in a lab?
Yes.
Wow. As long as something similar to it exists in nature, it can be called a natural flavor.
Yes. To some extent. I mean, there are different percentages. It gets pretty nuanced.
Pretty complicated.
It's complicated. Yeah. But in general, yes, it can happen that way.
So do you eat anything with natural flavors now?
I avoid and minimize as much as I can. And I just find that flavors are overused. There's a lot of products that don't need flavors in them, that it doesn't make sense to have it in there. So I won't choose that product.
Yeah. Let's transition to personal care a little bit. What are some of the biggest red flags that you see in personal care products these days?
Well, you mentioned it. Fragrance is probably at the top of the list because it's pretty much in everything. It's also easily avoidable. So that's definitely a red flag.
Right.
That's a
fragrance,
no-go.
Perfume, if it says that on the label, don't get it.
Right. It's
Easy.
a no-go. It's a no-go because more often than not, there are endocrine disruptors in there. Phthalates are listed on the fragrance industry website as one of the possible ingredients, and there's been studies showing that a large number of fragrances contain phthalates.
And what is a phthalate?
Well, phthalates they're technically plasticizer chemicals, but they have a lot of different uses in consumer products. So one of them specifically for fragrances is to prolong the sensory experience of the scent.
So you don't really ever see fragrance without phthalate. Would that be an accurate assumption?
We can't say that across the board, but more often than not, there are phthalates in there.
Okay.
It really depends on the product, on the company. You can look for products that contain fragrance that say they're phthalate free. So it's up to you you just have to trust that company if you want that product.
Yeah.
And if you're not comfortable with that, that's something I'm not comfortable with, even if it says phthalate free, unless I know exactly what's in that fragrance. If it's essential oils, then I'm okay with that. If they won't tell you what's in it, but they say it's phthalate free, I'm still going to avoid that.
PFAS are getting a lot of attention lately. What risks do they pose to the consumer?
So PFAS chemicals are known as per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. That's what the acronym stands for. They're basically these fluorinated chemicals. There's nearly 15,000 of them that are known anyway. There could be more. But they basically impart a waterproof, non-stick, stain-proof, stain-resistant property to whatever product they're applied to. So they're found in non-stick cookware, in rain gear, yoga pants, like anything that's sweat wicking, stain guard on your furniture. You can find them in cosmetics too, unfortunately.
What use do they have in cosmetics? Why would a cosmetic manufacturer put PFAS in their products?
They want the long-lasting waterproof effect.
Okay, yeah. And what are the risks of them?
Well, there are several risks They're, first of all, extremely persistent. So once they enter your body, it can take years, if not decades, for them to leave your body, if that. But the fact that we are being exposed continuously, they're actually accumulating in our bodies. So the problem with PFAS are that they are not only endocrine disrupting, but they are also carcinogenic.
And is it possible to detox from them in a shorter amount of time than, I think you mentioned, like 10 plus years? They remain in the system. Is it possible through detox optimization to get rid of them more quickly, or do we not really know?
It's not really clear yet.
Okay.
At this point, according to the research, I haven't seen any evidence that you can speed that up other than living as clean and low tox as you can, just to give your body the best chance it can to detoxify.
Yeah. What about period products? This is another hot topic. What is the problem with most of the period products on the market today?
Most period products contain contaminants, right? So there was a recent study that came out talking about heavy metals. I hate to spoil it, but heavy metals have always been in period products for a long time. This is just now coming out into the mainstream.
And how do they get in there? What's the purpose of heavy metals in period products?
They're not necessarily intentionally added because they don't impart any benefit. It's that they are contaminating the materials that are used to make the tampons and pads.
Okay. The actual manufacturing materials?
Yeah, so the raw materials like the cotton, the plastics, things like that.
Yeah. They just get in there.
They get in there just because, so heavy metals are naturally occurring in the environment, but they can become more concentrated if you're in an area that has more industrial processes like mining, fracking, any area that uses leaded fuel, that's going to spread lead into the environment, for example. So there can be a concentration of heavy metals in certain plants as well. So some plants will
they take in more.
They'll take in more.
Yeah. What else are in period products that we don't want in period products?
Phthalates, as we mentioned,
Okay.
usually from the fragrances. Any scented period products are an absolute no-go.
They're the worst.
Unless,
the worst. It's like a scented trash bag. You're like masking an odor with something that's even worse than the odor itself.
Right. So if you can avoid that at all costs, that's the way that I go. Unless it's an emergency situation, I will not touch a scented period product.
Yeah.
But not only that, there was benzene, there were other contaminants in there. There was a study that found that women who used conventional tampons had higher levels of heavy metals in their body and oxidative stress. So that's a sign of toxicity, right?
Yeah.
The oxidative stress. That's something that we want to avoid. And there's just a lot of risks if you're not aware and if you don't know how to choose the safer period products. There are brands out there that are testing for this.
What are some of the brands that you like?
The one brand that I would go for if I was using a disposable, I personally use reusable period products, but if I were to choose a disposable, it would be Natracare.
Okay.
So I've
seen that.
Yeah. So they're organic
the health
cotton.
food store.
Right.
Yeah.
You want the organic cotton. You want to avoid the plastics, like the applicator tube if you're using a tampon. Can't really avoid it altogether, but if you're choosing disposables, just know that those are going to be higher risk in general than reusables.
And it's such an absorbent area too, right?
Exactly.
Like you're putting something not only onto your body but into your system.
Exactly. The vagina is actually a route of drug delivery because there's a lot of blood flow down there. The cell does the lining of the vagina is actually quite thin. So chemicals can get in, and then once they get into your bloodstream, it's almost a direct hit to your reproductive organs because they're not getting detoxified by the liver.
Right. And so when you mention reusable products, tell us a little bit about that and what are the options there?
So personally, I use reusable period underwear, and there's also period pads that are reusable.
What brand do you use?
I use, what is the brand? Revolve Cares is the brand.
And how does that work? I've always wondered this. I haven't tried period underwear, but it absorbs all of it, and
it does.
then just for a full day.
It can, depending on your flow. I mean, if I have like a heavier day, I might have to change them out once.
Yeah.
But they do hold a lot, and it basically works they have some absorbent fabric, and then there's a layer of polyurethane that prevents it from the liquid from coming through the other side and getting on your legs.
Yeah.
So that's how they work, but the ones that I found are very comfortable. They're made out of bamboo. They have the least amount of synthetics.
Okay.
So I found those to be optimal for me. I love them. They work great for me. They might not work for everyone. So if someone wants something that is not necessarily allowing the blood to come out, then you can try a period cup, a menstrual cup.
Yeah, tell us about those. How do
Yeah,
those work?
medical grade silicone or platinum cured silicone generally is on the lower end of the risk spectrum, but we don't really know long term what they're doing.
Yeah.
So even though they might seem safer right now, I can't say if a study isn't going to come out in a few years that says the opposite.
Right. What about the disc? How is that different than a cup?
I think it's similar. It depends on the material, really. There's some
Okay.
discs I think that are made out of plastic, but you can also find silicone discs.
Okay. And speaking about just products that we use in these highly sensitive areas, tell our audience a little bit about toilet paper and the risks of conventional toilet paper.
So similar to what we were talking about, there's a lot of blood flow down there. And with toilet paper, we use it, some people use it multiple times a day, right? You don't necessarily go to the bathroom once a day. So that's already having an increase in the frequency, which will impact how much of the chemicals from that paper get absorbed. But also the fact that there's friction, that can also increase chemical penetration. So these sensitive areas, we really need to be careful with what we're rubbing or putting there, because the amount of chemicals that are getting in, we don't know if they're impacting our health and if they are toxic chemicals like formaldehyde and
bleach,
dioxins. Right,
Like
bleach,
all the
dioxins,
period
chlorine.
products, toilet
There's
paper
actually
also.
studies that show that if you're using conventional toilet paper, you can actually get a lot of irritation down there.
And why is recycled toilet paper a no-no?
Well, not only is it more expensive, but people throw thermal receipt paper into the recycle bin.
Wow.
And that ends up in recycled toilet paper.
Which is really high in BPA.
Exactly. So you're essentially applying BPA to your private parts.
Yeah. So it sounds like a really good eco-friendly option, but not something you want to do.
Right.
Wow.
So
And what's your favorite toilet paper brand?
it's called plant paper, and it's made out of bamboo. And there are a lot of bamboo toilet paper brands out there, but this one I found was not bleached, which was a plus. And they also shared all their contaminant test reports with me. So it's been tested for 1,4-dioxane, formaldehyde, different things. So that really gives me a lot of peace of mind.
Yeah. Okay. And we'll put all of these links in the show notes, because you are just like a library of information on non-toxic living, which I love. As a non-toxic skincare company that started with non-toxic deodorant, I'd love to do a deep dive into deodorant specifically and why conventional deodorants, specifically antiperspirants, are making this infertility epidemic and just poor health epidemic so much worse.
Well, let's first talk about what those are, right? So an antiperspirant is something that blocks perspiration, and they do this with the use of aluminum salt. So they physically block the sweat ducts and prevent sweat from coming out, which, come to find out, sweat is actually a detox pathway. So this is not a good idea.
We don't want to get in the way of that.
Right. You don't want to block your detox at all. You want to enhance your detox, if anything, right?
Yeah.
So first of all, the aluminum salts. So the aluminum can actually get absorbed into the breast tissue. It's been found in breast cancer samples. Aluminum, a lot of people don't realize, actually has estrogenic properties. And there have been studies showing that people who use, especially younger girls, who use these antiperspirants have an increased risk for breast cancer.
Wow. And parabens too, I think studies have shown that 97%, a really high percentage of tumors sampled, breast cancer tumors, have had parabens in them also.
Right. There's parabens. There could be many ingredients in that one antiperspirant that are increasing your risk of cancer.
Yeah. And I've heard you talk about how conventional deodorants, specifically aluminum deodorants, actually make you smell worse over time. Can you touch on that?
Yeah, so there was actually a study that found that when you're using antiperspirants and you're blocking sweat ducts, you actually change the microbiome of your underarms, and that can increase the smell, the odor. So you might end up having to use more, and that, of course,
Yeah.
the worst possible outcome.
I think we see that a lot too. People will say, you know, I'm unique. I have really bad body odor. And I know that some people maybe are genetically more prone to have worse BO than others, but I think a lot of people think they have worse BO than they do just because they've been using antiperspirants for so long that are blocking their detox pathways. They're putting all this junk up there. Nothing's getting out because they're not sweating properly. And then when they transition to natural deodorant, they might smell really bad for a couple of weeks, but then things kind of normalize and level out, and they find that they have much less body odor than they did before.
Yeah, that's what happened to me.
Yeah.
So I stopped
Me too.
using all of the aerosol deodorant that I used to swear by, and then
Oh my gosh. I saw an ad the other day for an aerosol full body deodorant. Like what world are we living in where we think we need to spray deodorant all over our entire body?
yeah, actually I have some thoughts on that. I don't get
Share,
it.
please
Just
share.
how about just bathe?
Yeah.
I mean,
Take a bath.
I don't see what the reason is. What is the purpose of an all body deodorant? I think it's ridiculous. These are the types of products that really just completely make my blood boil, because I can't stand it when people are being deceived and manipulated into buying a product that makes 0 sense.
0 cents.
No one has
It's just
ever
all
needed this
marketing.
before.
No.
Don't use it now. Don't buy it. It's just a waste of money.
What are some of the other problems with deodorant aside from aluminum?
The fragrances. They also have PEGs in them. Which PEGs, by the way, are a type of glycol, and they actually increase chemical penetration. They're penetration enhancers. So imagine you have a deodorant that has aluminum salt, fragrances, parabens, and these PEGs. You're just driving all of those chemicals into your bloodstream.
And how does a PEG show up on a product label?
It'll say PEG.
It actually says PEG
Yeah.
and then maybe have some numbers next to it or
Right,
something.
like a PEG-8 or something like that.
And then parabens, just so people know, like those will show up as, it'll say paraben, but it'll also say like methyl,
yes.
different.
It'll have
a different thing.
a prefix in front
Yes.
of it. Ethyl, methyl, butyl, propyl. There's
Right.
a bunch of different ones.
Right. And then for PFAS, forever chemicals, how would someone spot those on a product label?
You wouldn't. That's
wouldn't.
the crazy part. So there was a study that showed over 90% of products that were detected to have high levels of PFAS didn't have them on the label. So that's
Wow.
almost all of them,
Wow.
which is absolutely insane. It's a major loophole in labeling. The cosmetics industry clearly doesn't have our best interests if they're intentionally leaving things off the label.
So how would someone know?
Well, you can look for telltale signs like the waterproof, long wear,
Yeah.
smudge proof, those types of products. I wouldn't touch those.
Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about something else that can have long-term contact with your body. What are your thoughts on these beautification treatments like Botox and fillers?
So first of all, Botox comes from the bacterium Clostridium botulinum. It was day one of my toxicology class that I learned that botulism is the most potent toxin naturally occurring to man. So I thought to myself, okay, let me file that away. Fast forward a few years later, people start injecting themselves with it cosmetically. So there are use cases when people have migraines or debilitating pain where maybe that's the only option they have. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the cosmetic use of Botox. There are so many studies coming out, case studies, people coming forward saying that they've had horrible adverse effects because of cosmetic Botox. It doesn't just stay in your face.
Yeah.
It can get
and I think
absorbed into
that's-
your bloodstream. It
Right.
travels to different parts of your body. There's different symptoms that maybe clinicians aren't recognizing as being connected to the Botox. I mean, you're injecting a toxin in your face. I don't understand how this is considered safe or how people can ignore that. I personally wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Botox apologists would argue that, like you mentioned, it stays concentrated just to the general area. But just logically, that doesn't make sense. We know the products we apply get into our bloodstream when they absorb through the surface of our skin. So when you are injecting something even deeper, it would only make sense that it just does not stay concentrated just to that area. And we talk about this on our social media quite a bit. And every time without fail, we get flooded with messages, anecdotal stories of people who have had adverse effects from getting Botox injections. And so I feel like Botox is going to be the breast implant illness of the next 5 to 10 years. You know, now we are becoming aware of the negative effects of having breast implants. And I think that that will happen with Botox. I think it's starting to happen, but hasn't like fully become well known yet.
Yeah, I would probably agree with you on that, because I think the issue is really, for me, staying away from the invasive procedures.
Yeah.
Unless it's medically necessary, if that's your only option, that's a different story. Again, if it's a cosmetic, it's surface level, I think you can get really far. I mean, I know you can. This is how biology works, you clean up your insides, it's going to show up on your face. The aging, the toxins, I mean, all of this, it's all connected to each other. So once I actually cleaned up my lifestyle, I reverse aged myself. I have photos of myself when I was sick that I look 10 years older than I do now.
Wow.
So you can reverse age if you just clean your lifestyle up.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite non-toxic, like, quote, Botox alternatives?
Ooh, I like doing gua sha a lot.
Yeah.
I like gua sha. I like doing massage. I do, I like putting avocado, like yogurt masks, like food-based masks on my face.
Just mix avocado and yogurt?
Yeah, and you can add turmeric in there for brightening. I've noticed that helps brighten my dark spots. So as a kid, I had chickenpox scars, and my mom would take a piece of fresh turmeric and just rub it on there.
Wow.
And it lightened all the scars. I don't have permanent dark spots anymore. So you can
Sometimes
really go.
it's just the simplest things
Yeah,
that
exactly.
make such a big difference. I used to make those kinds of masks as a kid. I was just thinking the other day, like, I need to start doing some of that again. Like, egg. I think I would do like egg whites, did the avocado thing. Like, there's a lot of fun you can have playing around with like putting food on your face.
I wonder what would happen if you put some liver in.
I know. I've wondered that too. I want to try it, but the smell I feel like would be a little.
That's true. That's
a little
true.
bit challenging.
Yeah. Good point. Good point.
When it comes to finding truly non-toxic products, why are you a firm believer that you don't need a scientific background to understand labels?
Even though a lot of ingredient labels may seem like a foreign language, you don't need to study chemistry to know what you're buying. And I think that it becomes a lot easier when you can recognize ingredients on the label, similar to looking at a food label. If it's something that you just like, if you see BHT, you're like, what is that? That's not a common food, right? Same thing goes with your beauty and personal care products. If you can recognize the ingredients on the label, then you're already in good shape.
Yeah, it's kind of just knowing those red flags to look out for. And then we've talked about some of them. We talked about, how parabens will show up on labels, avoiding anything with fragrance or parfum, avoiding things that say waterproof, long lasting. What are some other common things to watch out for?
I would say anything that says just the word organic or natural, or if it says non-toxic, without actually being matching with the ingredient list.
Yeah.
So you always have to read the ingredients list.
Anyone can say that, right?
Right.
If you have the most toxic product ever, you can put non-toxic on there.
Right.
No one's going to punish you for that.
Right. You can put plant-based. I mean, there's no definition of that. What does that mean?
Right.
So you can put all kinds of stuff, and there's so many greenwash brands out there,
Yeah.
right? So just read the ingredients list, and that's how you'll know what you're buying.
Yeah. Okay. What about toothpaste? What do we look for when it comes to toothpaste? What do we avoid, and what do you like to see in a toothpaste?
So first, I'll start with the avoid. So I avoid fluoride,
Yes.
just because of the neurotoxicity concerns and the fact that studies have found that hydroxyapatite is just as effective at preventing cavities.
What is hydroxyapatite?
It's actually similar to a substance that we have in our teeth naturally occurring. So it helps to remineralize the teeth, and it doesn't come with the neurotoxicity risks that fluoride does.
Are dentists using that yet? Because I remember as a kid going to the dentist and just having fluoride like smeared
Brushed,
on my teeth.
yeah.
Yes, at the end of every visit. Is that still happening, or have they kind of wised up to that?
It's still happening, so parents have to be diligent. I myself look for a dentist that isn't doing that and who's open to other alternative options. So other things that I like to avoid in toothpaste are sodium lauryl sulfate, which is actually known to destroy the tissue inside of our mouth and gums and cause canker sores.
Wow. And
So
it's in like
a lot of toothpaste.
A lot of conventional
and
toothpaste.
it's to provide the foaming action, because
Oh my
people
gosh.
associate foaming with cleaning.
Right.
You don't actually need that.
It's like the sudsy soaps. People want that like sudsy,
lather.
squeaky clean feel, but really that can wipe out your skin's microbiome and have a really negative impact on the health of your skin.
Right, exactly.
What about sunscreen? What do you avoid in sunscreen?
I avoid the synthetic UV sunscreen filters like avobenzone, oxybenzone, homosalate, octosalate, things like that, octocrylene, because those have been shown to absorb into the bloodstream, and we don't know the long-term health effects of what that's doing to people. And not only that, if we're using aerosol sunscreen, most of it's not even getting on your body. If you ever see anyone applying it, most of it's just flying
It's just a
into
big cloud of
Right.
aerosol spray, and you can smell it from like 20 yards away.
Yeah, it's become a real issue. Even going to the beach or public places, that's all you can smell sometimes.
It's offensive.
It is. I think we should really put some restrictions on that, because
I agree.
it's not even effective if it's not getting on your skin, and people don't rub it in, so you're not getting an even layer anyway.
Right.
So then you're just using
inhaling
more,
so much
right?
of it too.
Which is a huge issue.
Yeah.
And so you just end up using more. So I think cosmetic manufacturers are genius, you know, if they're trying to make profit, which they probably are, to just make a product that people have to use a whole lot of just to get some kind of protection.
Yeah. Yeah. What sunscreen brands do you like?
Ooh, that's a good question. I have been using Dakota Tallow. It's a type of tallow-based sunscreen that I found I really like.
Cool. We're coming out with a tallow-based sunscreen.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
We'll send you some to try it when
Great.
it's ready. We have a lot of moms in our community with young children. And how are children at a disadvantage when it comes to detoxing from a lot of the toxins that are in the products that they use and just the products that all of us use?
Kids are just smaller than adults, so already pound for pound, the amount of toxins that get into their system will disproportionately affect them. So meaning that they, number one, they're small, and they can't detoxify, and they're growing.
Just because their detox pathways aren't fully established yet? Or?
Yeah, exactly. They're not fully developed, and they're still growing. So any toxic insult that happens can change their DNA and cause their bodies to change permanently.
That's terrible. So even more important to avoid toxins in the home with young kids around. What are some ways that you can try to optimize detoxification when it comes to young kids?
Definitely avoiding the processed foods. I see with so many kids, they're just constantly eating processed foods with the artificial flavors and the dyes and excess amounts of sugar.
Probably
and sodium.
more kids eat more of that than adults do, because all of the products that are marketed towards kids are just filled with sugar and food dyes and everything that they shouldn't be eating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everything that they shouldn't be eating. So avoiding processed foods, giving your kids whole, nutritious, nutrient-dense foods, that's key. And then, of course, avoiding the endocrine disruptors in their products. And a lot of young kids get hooked on these fragrance-laden, you know, sparkly, you know, products that you see marketed
And
towards
it
children.
distorts their palate so that they don't want to eat the whole foods.
Right.
They become addicted to these processed foods
Exactly.
at a young age.
Yes, and they also get addicted to fragrances, scented this, scented that. I see that all the time. And
Interesting.
it's actually a big challenge with my kids who are now school-aged,
Yeah.
being amongst their friends, seeing, oh, my friend has, you know, scented lip balm, scented this, scented, why can't I have that?
Right. Yeah, that's hard. I like to give my kids like Epsom salt baths sometimes. Sometimes I'll let them come in the sauna with me just for like 10, 15 minutes, because in my mind, I want them to be able to at least kind of give them a chance to sweat, you know, and at least detoxify that way, because a lot of the more advanced like detox methods are just not appropriate for kids, but there's some things that we can do to help with that too.
Yeah, just let them run around. That really just helps with so much.
Yeah.
And being in
Feet
nature.
on the earth, being in nature,
Yes.
getting natural sunlight.
Water instead of juice.
Yeah, yeah.
Those types of things help so much.
Yeah, they make a big difference. What about the fire retardant epidemic? There is fire retardant in a lot of things, sprayed on rugs in our homes, sprayed on even a lot of clothing. I think that it has to be sprayed on kids' pajamas, or there has to be a sticker, a tag on it that says that there is a risk of, like there has to be a warning label if fire retardant is not sprayed on it, right?
Right.
And so I always love it when I see kids' pajamas with that big tag, that big like warning tag that, you know, it's flammable or whatever. I'm like, yes, good, that's the one that I want. I don't want the one that has been sprayed with fire retardant. But why is fire retardant sprayed on so many things?
Yeah, it's basically just a liability thing that companies just want to cover themselves in case accidents happen. They don't want to get sued and that someone comes back and says, I caught on fire because this couch was not treated. So it's mainly just to protect themselves, the companies really.
Yeah. And I think there was a lot of lobbying that the fire retardant manufacturers did in order to make it a law that it has to be sprayed on your couch, on your rug, on your car seat. in order for them to sell more of it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised
Yeah.
to hear that it's happened so many times in various industries, salt, sugar lobbying.
Because I don't think at the end of the day any lives are being saved because their couch wasn't sprayed with fire retardant.
Yeah, I don't know the exact stats or numbers on that, but I mean, I don't know anyone whose, couch has caught on fire or spontaneously combusted. I don't know. I personally don't.
Right. No, yeah, so totally.
Yeah.
What about some other toxins in the home? What are some things to look out for in terms of creating a healthy home?
We'll definitely get your water and your air quality right, because those are the basic fundamentals that every person needs. We need to have clean air so we're not inhaling a bunch of toxins. We need clean water.
Yeah.
That's just, everyone needs that.
And how do you optimize air quality in your house?
So first of all, removing the sources of air pollution, like fragrances, cleaning products, like you said, the flame retardants, those types of additional chemicals, things like synthetic pressed wood furniture that off gases and releases formaldehyde. Try to minimize those things, because when you don't create the pollution, then you don't have to remove the pollution, right?
Yeah.
Opening your windows, that's massive. Most people don't open their windows,
And it doesn't take much, right?
Right.
It's just like 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening or something like that.
Any amount
Yeah.
is helpful. I mean, I have relatives in Germany, and even in the dead of winter, it's freezing outside. You open your windows after a long night because the air is stale, to refresh the air. And it does so much for your health and well-being to just have that bit of fresh air.
Yeah. What about air purifiers? Do you have a favorite brand?
Yeah, I like Air Doctor a lot. So I have a few of those units in my home, and they're really effective. I think they're great.
Do you ever recommend the box fan method?
You can, yeah.
Yeah.
If you're on a budget, if that's all that you can get, then a box fan with a HEPA filter attached to it is just as effective.
Yeah. And what about plants, house plants? Do you believe those have a big impact on air quality?
They don't have as big of an impact as people might think because, again, I read all the studies.
Yeah.
There was a study that found you need a large number of plants in your home to actually purify to the extent as an air purifier would.
Okay.
Not saying that they're not helpful,
Right.
but they're not as helpful as people think.
They're not the magic bullet.
Right.
Yeah.
So having houseplants is amazing just for health and well-being, but it isn't necessarily, like you said, the magic bullet.
Yeah. What about when thinking about non-toxic cleaning products for the home? What do you avoid with household cleaning products, and what do you like?
I avoid most things that are in pretty much everything that's in the store because they usually have a lot of fragrances in them. Mm-hmm. They're releasing toxic chemicals into the air. If something smells very strong of a chemical smell, then that's a bad sign.
Yeah. And even when they're closed, they're still releasing VOCs and negatively impacting the air quality in your home.
Yes, exactly.
So even just having them there is not good. And that's obvious if you walk through the cleaning aisle at the store, you smell everything. Everything's closed, but you're still smelling it. So
Right.
it's powerful stuff, not in a good way. I love Branch Basics. Do you use Branch Basics?
Yes, I like Branch Basics. I also use another brand called Meliora because it's entirely plastic free.
How do you manage non-toxic living and doing everything within your control to optimize your health without obsessing over things that are out of your control?
Well, first, I think it's important to remind ourselves that you can't control things outside of your home, like period. You
Yeah.
just can't. There's so much happening outside that the only place you really have most control is inside your home. I really think that it can get to a point where we become orthorexic and start becoming fearful of things that shouldn't necessarily cause fear. So fearing a Whole Foods should never be feared. That type of thing, I think, is something really important to remind ourselves of, because it can be easy to think, oh my gosh, this bottle, this cap, everything, and you just can't live then. And the stress itself is toxic.
Right. So what are some free things that people can do to optimize their health, optimize their detox pathways? I know that you've talked about, taking your shoes off when you get home is a really easy thing that you can do to improve the health of your home. What are some other just easy, simple hacks that people can keep top of mind?
Yeah, the first one would be taking off your shoes. The second one would be opening the windows. Mm-hmm. And I would like to even get outside, do some grounding, get in touch with nature, and really, try to regulate your hormones in that way, because if you are being exposed to endocrine disruptors, like most of us are, we can't avoid everything, then you're at least giving your body a better chance at stabilizing itself. Because I feel like we're constantly bombarded by all different types of stimuli, substances that we can't control. So I think the things that we can do that are very basic and they're free.
Yeah.
Right? So getting sunlight, getting your feet on the soil, drinking enough clean water, getting enough sleep. I think a lot of the basics are kind of overlooked sometimes.
Yeah, when you take care of the basics, a lot of the other things kind of start to fall into place.
Exactly.
And just like having a less is more mentality when it comes to a lot of things, when it comes to the products we use, when it comes to food, just like the simpler, the better.
Yeah, I love that perspective so much, because I think things can get really overcomplicated with those unnecessary products like body deodorant, right?
Yeah.
We don't need those things. Just stick to what you need.
Right, exactly. What are some things that you like to do to optimize detoxification for yourself?
I like to do sauna. I love sweating. I was doing hot yoga for a while, but that got kind of tough for me. So I like to just do sauna at home.
I love sauna.
I like doing
so
yoga
good.
on the grass, barefoot. That's really relaxing for me. That also helps, with detox and everything like that. So those are the main things that I like to do. And I like doing weight training, weightlifting, those types of things.
Weightlifting is amazing, and it doesn't get enough credit as like a health practice. I feel like a lot of people think of weightlifting as purely like body composition related, but it is so good for your hormones, so good for just supporting your body and longevity as we get older. It just feels really good.
Yeah, it actually increases our glutathione production. So glutathione is the master antioxidant, detoxifier. When you exercise, glutathione goes up.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Do
so
you supplement with glutathione also?
I don't.
So you
I do
just
not.
get it naturally. You just prompt your body to make more of its own glutathione.
Right. So I reduce and remove toxins, right? Because toxins deplete glutathione. So if you prevent the loss of glutathione, then you're already in better shape. And then if you provide the building blocks like sulfur-rich foods, green tea, eggs, I like meat, dairy, those types of things help to increase glutathione too.
Love that. Okay, now I'm really excited for this next part. So I'm going to give you a this or that quiz. Are you ready?
Okay.
And this is all preferences. There's
All right.
no right or wrong answer.
Okay, sounds good.
But I'm excited to hear your answers. Would you rather live in a moldy house or in a house with lead paint?
Ooh. Probably, it's hard to say. Definitely neither, but I guess lead, because the effects of mold can be really, really long lasting. I think with lead, at least there are ways that we can help to support our body, but that's a really tough one.
Yeah.
I don't want to choose either, of course.
I'm trying to just give you paint out your worst nightmare with all of these questions. Would you rather use non-organic tampons or non-organic toilet paper?
Non-organic toilet paper, because it's not going internally.
Yeah. Would you rather wear fragrance every day or use a toxic laundry detergent?
Ooh, they're the same thing. It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, a little bit.
I guess the laundry detergent, because that's really hard. Neither.
You can't say neither.
I know. Okay, all right. Probably the laundry detergent one, because actually you can put your clothes in the sun and it'll get rid of
it kind of neutralizes
Yeah.
that. So you would use the toxic laundry detergent, but just go outside at the beginning of every day.
Yeah, try to air it out.
Okay, fair enough. Would you rather wear red lipstick every day with red dye, of course, or use toxic toothpaste with fluoride?
Well, you can't avoid using toothpaste. You need, I use toothpaste. I don't necessarily wear lipstick, so I guess I have to choose the toothpaste one. Unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Would you rather burn a pumpkin spice candle or drink a pumpkin spice latte?
Oh, these are really hard questions. I hate all of these options.
It was so fun coming up with these.
Oh God. Okay. I'll probably drink the pumpkin spice latte, because inhaling stuff is much worse than ingestion.
Okay, why is that?
Because you can get things directly into your bloodstream. They'll go to your brain through the lungs. So, can I open a window?
Nope, no window.
Okay, then it'll be the pumpkin spice latte.
Would you rather drink water out of a plastic bottle or drink standard tap water in a glass cup?
Oh, probably the water bottle, maybe.
Yeah,
oh,
I think I would too.
Yeah, tap water is just really bad.
Yeah,
Tap water is bad.
it's really bad. Would you rather wear outside shoes into the house or never clean the dust in your house?
Oh, those are really bad. You really stumped me on a lot of these.
That was my goal.
I can't wear shoes in the house. I just cannot. There's just every fiber of my being, I cannot wear shoes.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you rather eat eggs cooked on a non-stick pan or eat bacon cooked on aluminum foil?
Probably the eggs on the non-stick,
Yeah.
because unless there's a crack or a chip on the non-stick, then the Teflon shouldn't go into the food as much.
Okay.
But
Okay.
the aluminum for sure would be leaching.
It would definitely leach. Okay.
The aluminum would definitely leach.
Okay.
Although, yeah, I don't know. Those are tough. Those are tough.
What kind of cookware do you use in your home?
I use pure ceramic cookware. So
Okay.
it's not coated. It's a solid piece of ceramic.
What brand is it?
It's Extrema.
Okay. Forgot to ask you that earlier. Well, thank you so much for joining us. You have so much knowledge on non-toxic living, and not just the problems, but also the solutions. And I really appreciate that perspective. And I think our listeners will too. So thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can people follow along with you and continue to learn from everything that you're doing and sharing?
I'm on Instagram. I'm on YouTube. You can find me at Dr. Yvonne Burkart. And you can also check out my website, dyvonneburkart.com.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much.